All right. Welcome, Peter. Thanks for coming.
My pleasure.
So, for those of you who don't know Peter Keller, he's the owner of Fringe Sport. But that's, one of a million reasons or many things that define who you are. And I've gotten to know you over the years just through Fringe Sport being an equipment supplier, but also just through conversations and things we've had. And I've always kind of looked at you as someone who really has life figured out on many different levels.
I fooled you.
You fooled me. You got it. But there's just so many similarities I see kind of between us, and we'll go down a lot of different avenues here. But one of them is you've got a in your warehouse and office, which is Fringe Sport. You also have a gym in that to display equipment, but people work out in there.
So it is the only free gym in the United States.
Oh, that's awesome.
We invite all of our customers,
Uh-huh.
and indeed everyone, to just drop on by, sign a release saying that if you drop a barbell on your face, you're not going to sue us,
Uh-huh.
but then work out in the gym. And so we're actually building a community in that gym. A community that doesn't pay us, but a community nonetheless.
Uh-huh. It is awesome. If y'all have never been down there, the gym is in South Austin.
It is. It's off Burleson. We're actually on Drossett Drive, but off Burleson, close to the airport, 5 minutes from the airport.
Uh-huh. And something I find super cool about that is you've got all the bells and whistles, cool equipment out there.
Of course.
Everything that, like, the things that you just see people use in these competitions or in the gym or this YouTube video, someone using it, you can go get your hands on it and actually see how much you like it, and I like this variation of it and stuff like that. It's really, really cool. It's just a cool atmosphere.
Well, thank you. I think so.
Yeah, it's awesome. So something I wanted to start with is just hearing from you how you got started with Fringe Sport, kind of why you started it, and then I know a lot of people sit at their offices and maybe they have like an invention or a product idea, or they've got a dream of, I really want to open this, or I wish I would do this. So I always think it's cool talking to people who have been in, we'll call it the real world, and we'll call the world we live in not the real world, even though it very is real. But anyway, I like hearing why people transitioned, how they transitioned, what they do differently, that type of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks
Kyle.
for coming.
It's been too long since we've caught up, and I really enjoy chatting with you.
Yeah.
And hey, we're recording it.
We've had some good conversations in the past, and maybe we've been saving it up for a really good one here.
For sure. So, long story short, with Fringe, I had always wanted to own my own business, and I always knew that it would be around selling something. From being a kid, I was buying stuff out of the back of Boys Life magazine and selling that stuff to my friends. Then fast forward, skip a little bit to college. The dot-com boom was happening, and I'm not really a tech guy, but I was really interested in e-commerce.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up getting a job with an e-commerce company here in town, and actually it's an appliance company. When we were walking in here, you had one of those appliances that I designed when I was at that company.
That's
just
so
sitting
awesome.
out there. So crazy and random. So I got a job at that e-commerce company. I actually ended up working there for 10 years, rising from basically warehouse guy / gopher.
And so that was your straight out of college job.
Even in college, and then, boom, just rolling into it.
And I feel like that's something that happens to a lot of people, and it's, these companies are really smart, and they know how to hold on to people and to upgrade them and to keep them in the... So what happens is, so early on, you're 18 years old and now you have to pick your life's path. And then now you're graduating college and you got to start somewhere. And you're not choosing the absolute perfect thing. You're choosing just something you can get started in, and then you just start going down that path. And so it's hard sometimes to like poke your head out and be like, is this the direction I actually want to go, or is this just the direction I'm going?
Yeah. Well, let me skip forward and actually tell you about a really impactful conversation on me. So let's skip forward 8-9 years. I was working at the company. I'd been rising through the ranks. I, at the time, was VP and reporting to the CEO, and the company was doing really well. And at one point, the CFO of the company, so above me, but I wasn't reporting to him. He said, "Hey, Pete, let's go grab lunch," which he did commonly. We go grab lunch, we talk about, whatever business stuff, some lifestyle stuff. And grab lunch, and at lunch he said, "Hey, Peter, I think you need to quit." And that knocked my head back. I said, "Whoa, wait, am I being fired?" He's like, no, you're not being fired. You're doing great here, but I think you should quit." And so I said, "Okay, I don't understand what we're talking about."
Yeah.
And he said, he was older, CFO, had been around the block. I know that he had some entrepreneurial background, and it didn't work out the bestest for him. And what he told me is, he said, "Pete, a salary is a drug. And when you work in a company and you're working your way up in the company, the dose of the drug keeps increasing and increasing and increasing. And the higher the dose gets, the harder it is to go cold turkey off that drug." So I see you as someone, and I'd talked with him before about me wanting to be an entrepreneur. He said, "I see you as someone who wants to go and do your own thing. And I believe that you can, and you can be successful in doing your own thing. But I also know how much money you make. And I think that the dose of the drug is starting to get too high. And if you wait longer, then you're not going to be able to go to cold turkey, and you're not going to be able to start your own business. So I'm not telling you to quit today. I'm just telling you some things as I see them.
Yeah.
I think you should think about it." And so I actually didn't take that conversation really well, because I was like, "Wow, that asshole," or something like that. Or how presumptuous.
Well, and you're on the drug.
And I'm on the drug. Yeah, so it's easy to fool yourself.
Yeah.
But I did think about it over the years, and I did end up starting a company fairly shortly after that on the side. I had read Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week, and for me that brought together a lot of different things that I'd been thinking about. It's kind of a watershed type of event for me. So I started Fringe on the side. In the 4-Hour Work Week, Tim Ferriss talks about a muse, and he talks a lot about passive income. So the idea from 4-Hour Work Week is you start more or less a passive income company, and then, or muse, and it provides passive income so you can go live on a beach or something like that.
Yeah.
After about a year of running Fringe on the side, and I invited my brother in as a co-founder.
And so you had a full-time job.
Yes.
And you were running Fringe on the side. And I think that's super cool because, and I know Jocko Willink talks about this, and he's like, if you have these two giant choices and you're unsure which direction you want to go, you don't have to go all in this direction. He's like, do the smallest possible thing you can do to lead you in this direction. And it was this exact same way I got started here. Is I had a full-time job. I didn't quit my job and open the gym. I had my full-time job, opened the gym, coached in the morning, coached at lunch, coached after work to test the waters everywhere. And then there becomes the moment of, this is what I want to do. And then you kind of dive all in. And you have to at some point go all in on it. But I feel like a lot of people get frozen because they're not willing to go all in the beginning, and you don't have to. You absolutely can, but you don't have to.
Yeah, and I would argue that it might be slightly foolhardy to go all in at the very beginning. So one of the things that I thought about a lot then, I think about a little bit less now, but a lot then, was the idea of lean startup. And lean startup preaches your minimum viable product, or MVP. So that's the worst, crappiest version of what you want to do that someone might buy. So it can't be so crappy that people would be like, hey, I'm not going to buy that.
Yeah.
But it should, I think they often say you should be embarrassed by your MVP.
Yeah, if you're looking back at it, or currently.
Or even currently, you should be embarrassed by it. But you should still try
Got to get something
to
out
sell
there.
that and see if there's any traction going on. So I totally agree with the, baby steps type of thing. One other thing that I would mention there, and this is something we may or may not get into a little bit later, is that I was working a full-time job at the time, so that was 50, 60 hours a week there. I was starting a company, on the side, maybe 20 hours a week on the company. And then, I had other things I was doing here and there. And a lot of people say, well, you're ending up working a ton of hours. And there are always sacrifices that you can make.
Mm-hmm.
So even today, I watch very, very little TV.
Mm-hmm.
I don't play video games.
Mm-hmm.
I actually don't hang out with friends all that often. And these are the things that I've chosen to sacrifice
Mm-hmm.
so that I can live the life that I want to live.
Mm-hmm.
So back then, I do think I didn't have kids yet,
Mm-hmm.
but, or you know what? Actually, sorry, let me take it back. I did have one child, one daughter. So I didn't sacrifice my family as much as I could have. I
Yeah.
did sacrifice them a little bit in terms of time and energy with them, but you don't have to sacrifice, let's say, your family. You could sacrifice going out and having a beer with your friends. You can
Mm-hmm.
sacrifice playing video games. You can sacrifice sitting on the couch and watching TV.
Mm-hmm.
Or Jocko would probably say you can sacrifice a little bit of sleep in the morning because he's a
Mm-hmm.
huge proponent of getting up early
Yeah.
and knocking stuff out then.
And I'm the opposite. But yeah, you get to choose. Yeah, you get to choose what you're doing. What we talk about a lot is like the 4-burner theory,
Yeah.
where one of the burners is your business, one of the burners is a hobby, family, relationship. You get to pick what your
Mm-hmm.
burners are. But to be world class at any one thing, it can be your only thing.
Yeah.
To be good at 2 things, then those can be your only 2 things. To be pretty good at them, and then, but what your energy level and the input is fixed. But then the only thing that you can start leveraging, and then I've seen you do this in your life too, is you can outsource some of the areas of your life. And when I was emailing you to set this up, you weren't emailing me back. You emailed a couple times, but it was your assistant.
Yes.
So you've outsourced parts of your business life. So now your business stays up here or higher than it could be on your own, but your energy going in, now you have more energy to boost to other areas. And so it's all, you've got only what the energy you have, and then you have to choose where it goes, but you got to make those choices.
Absolutely.
And then everything has a trade-off. And so if you're not going to sleep, then maybe the health burner goes down, but the business burner goes up. And so you have to, everything's a trade-off that you got to decide for yourself. And I feel like what happens to a lot of people is they just start doing things without taking that step back and looking at their life and being like, okay, I understand because I'm doing that, it's causing this. And because I'm doing this, it's causing this. And without stepping back and making those choices, things just kind of happen to them, as opposed to you understanding what you're doing and making it happen, and understanding just how it impacts everything.
Yeah. And I will mention, I'm talking about a journey of 10 and 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a lot of time to digest what happened on that journey, so it was messier
Yeah.
when I was going through it.
Uh-huh.
And I've also had, at this point, a lot of therapy and personal development
Mm-hmm.
work, and so it's really allowed me to contextualize a lot of aspects of my life and be even more mindful about what I'm selecting to neglect.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
But so back to the founding of Fringe, I talked with you about appliances earlier. I was
Mhm.
literally in the ice maker, air conditioner business.
Mm-hmm.
And I was getting super focused on those things and learning so much about compressors and refrigeration and all this stuff, even like a little thermodynamics, because an air conditioner doesn't make cold, it just moves heat.
Yeah.
And it's typically removing heat, so I was learning all that stuff.
And then just to butt in, I've heard you talk about barbells before and the insides and the intricacies and like something, it's like every single little bit, and the difference of this type of bearing versus this type of bearing, and then what the components are. So it's like I've heard you talk with passion about parts that could be listed in 10 seconds. I've heard you talk, so it's like I know when you go in on something, you understand every little tiny bit. And I think that was something you were saying earlier.
Yeah.
Is like you knew every little tiny bit of air conditioners and and it's like, and you wanted to know more about things you cared about more.
Exactly. I was thinking, eating, sleeping, dreaming about keg beer refrigerators, and I would so much rather be doing that about barbells,
Yeah.
kettlebells, bumper plates, that sort of thing. But so I was thinking about where this was when I founded Fringe. It was 2009 was kind of the pre-founding, and then 2010 was when it was founded. And I was at the time really into CrossFit and really believed that CrossFit was a movement that was going to change the fitness world, which it has and continues to do so. And I looked around at the equipment side of it because I was always a physical product person, and I thought, you know what, I can provide another option here. I can help people get stronger and improve their lives in this area. And so as we talked about minimum viable product earlier, I thought, well, I want to sell barbells and bumper plates and squat racks, but I don't have the space to store those, and they're going to be a pain in the butt to ship. So I looked around, and I settled on gymnastics rings. Gymnastics rings were small enough that I could stock a whole bunch in my garage, and I could take them to the post office or UPS after work and sell them. So I ordered a whole bunch of gymnastics rings. I think my first order was like 200 pairs of gymnastics rings and straps. I had an awesome garage gym in my garage that I had built up on Craigslist. I dismantled it, sold it off on Craigslist, and I said, "Oh, bye, baby. If this works, you'll come back."
Yeah.
So, threw up a Shopify website and started selling gymnastics rings. So that was our minimum viable product. They were totally fine gymnastics rings, but nothing terribly special or sexy. We ended up being able to sell those, and so then I thought, well, you know what? We're able to sell gymnastics rings. But I really think that if we are able to sell something else to someone who already bought gymnastics rings, that's when we'll know that this is actually a viable business. And so I found a supplier for kettlebells.
Was it that the VTX brand?
Yeah, VTX, Troy Barbell, out of Houston.
That's when I first found out about y'all, probably back in the 2009-ish range when I didn't have a gym. I was in my garage. And found out that y'all were in town, and that's what I remember. Y'all had just a few things, but I was like, but these are the exact things that I need. So like whatever your thinking was, it hit me just spot on, and it was just like perfect way to start there.
Heck yeah. So we got in some kettlebells and even some plates from Troy Barbell VTX. Started selling those. We're successful with that. So that went on for about a year. And we did about $100,000 in revenue in our first year. At the end of that first year, two things became apparent to me. Number one, Fringe was never going to be a Tim Ferriss passive income 4-hour work week muse, which, by the way, I'm skeptical that those actually exist, period.
I was going to say the same thing. I've now started a lot of businesses that haven't done very well because I was trying to start passive income, and it's like maybe in the future something can become but you have to go all in.
Yep.
It's like and so that was the big thing here. As soon as I took 100% ownership of this gym, it's just like everything else, pause, on hold, it's gone. This is the one thing, and I'm not trying to sit back. So I think because I used to listen to, it was called the Lifestyle Business Podcast.
Yeah.
It was kind of the same thing with the Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week. And I was sold on this passive income. I can go live anywhere. But then I was trying to live that as I was trying to build the thing and it was just like, you have to just go all in. And then maybe sometime, possibly, but like you said, it's like, I'm not even sure that that's ever a thing, really, unless you're 1% of 1% that just gets really lucky in how it is. And you can design how you're doing it to kind of push it that direction. But I think a lot of people are making the mistake that I made. It sounds like you feel like and I don't know if it's necessarily a mistake, but of expecting that right off the bat. And because of that, it holds your business back so much, as opposed to just being like, I'm going to grind. I am going in. I'm doing this thing. I'm going to do everything it takes. And as soon as I made that shift into this place, everything changed.
Absolutely. So I do want to clarify a couple things. I actually know people who have these awesome passive income businesses now, but I don't know anyone who didn't go all in and grind for years, not months, years, in some case decades, and then transition to it being basically a passive income business.
Yeah.
So I know a number of people that are currently doing that or have done that, but I don't know anyone that started off and had that immediately.
Yeah.
And then to speak to the Tropical MBA or the Lifestyle Business podcast. So I think they've rebranded a few years ago to Tropical MBA, and actually, so Dan and Ian are the hosts, and Ian actually lives here in Austin.
Oh, he does?
Far away from me.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I know Dan and Ian, love Dan and Ian.
Yeah, they're awesome.
There is a path to being basically a 25-year-old white guy who knows a fair bit about some aspect of internet marketing, and then moves to Chiang Mai, Thailand, and makes like $2,000 a month and lives, more or less like a king. Maybe makes $3,000 a month and lives like a king in Chiang Mai.
Yeah.
I do think there's a path to that, but even that is typically not passive. There's still work involved, but it might be 20 hours a week of work. I do think it's hard to build something with a legacy and with real and lasting impact on people.
Yeah.
Going down that path, but that is a path that still exists.
And it sounds like, and I know I've got a lot of friends. I talk to a lot of people who have this idea. So just like we talked about, we both had full-time jobs and we created this thing on the side. But the thing on the side was never going to be a thing until we quit the jobs and went all in. So I think a lot of people have whatever their invention is, they have this thing in their head and they're like, oh, I'm going to be able to just work and do this on the side. And I think that's a great step to get it started. But they need to look ahead at what going all in actually looks like, because I think that's another step that people don't take. And they don't understand that on the surface, being a professional baseball player looks awesome. Getting a lot of money, all this stuff. But then you look at it and it's like, oh, you're traveling in airplanes, sleeping in hotels away from your home, more than half of the year. You're spending this much time at the ballpark, which might all be great part of the trade-off, but people don't take the extra step of imagining what's the day-to-day actually look like for somebody who has invented something, is now trying to get a patent, is now trying to get a manufacturer in China to make it and to get it shipped over here. What does their day-to-day look like in marketing this stuff? And you can start that stuff with something else on the side, but to really make that thing a thing, you've got to get 100% your hands dirty and into it.
Yeah. So there's a great YouTube video, and it's, I think, like 4 minutes long. It's, I think, for athletes. And it talks about if you want something as bad as you want to breathe. I think it's like if you stick your head, underwater for 30 seconds or a minute or something like that. As bad as you want to breathe at that moment, you want a breath of oxygen. If you want something as bad as you want that breath, then you're probably going to get what you want. But people don't really want things that badly. They think they do, but they actually don't. But the beautiful thing is that you can change your mindset, or I've changed my mindset at times and said, I want this that badly. And then I've always gotten what I wanted that badly. But I will mention that there's a lot of trade-offs to that. Because if you want, it's the burner thing. If you want that burner to heat up that much that you're focused on that burner, let's say it's business, your family burner often, has problems. Your health burner often has problems, and other burners have problems. I mean, one of the things that I think about a lot is, or fairly often, is I think about Elon Musk.
Oh yeah.
I think this is a man who has changed the world, and I look at, just media reports and stuff that I see of him, and I'm like, this guy does not look very happy.
No, and I've heard a lot of interviews with him, and he is very honest and open to, look, I don't sleep. I know this is not healthy. It's cutting years off of my life. I don't do this and I don't do that. It's like, it's the only reason I'm here today, but I've given up all of these things for it. And he's like, I can't turn it off. And so it's like he's got a one-track mind, and it is Tesla, space. It's all the things he's doing, and then all the other ones are off. It's like health off. He doesn't care about those, which is fine. You know, some world-class athletes do the exact same thing. They're making that choice, but he's not kidding himself, being like, oh, I'm the healthiest, happiest person, this and that, and I have all this going on. It's like, no, he has all this going on, and then that's kind of what he's got.
Yeah. So another story about this single-minded focus that I think about a lot is Michael Jordan. When Michael Jordan was inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame, so this is years after his playing career, where, you know, we can argue, you know, LeBron, blah, 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 whatever, but, you know, no one will ever be Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Except Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
When he was inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame, during his speech for being inducted, he threw shade at some dude from high school that had made the basketball team instead of him when he was like a sophomore or a junior.
Mm-hmm.
So this is 20 years later, like 25 years later, something like that. It still bothered him that this kid in high school made the team instead of him. And that, like, misanthropic, single-minded focus on being the best is sometimes what it takes
to be
the
best.
best.
Uh-huh.
So it's something that I think about a lot. But back to Fringe. So after first year, I realized, oh, hey, this is not going to be a Muse passive income.
Yeah.
But I was seeing a lot of happy customers, and I was like, wow, this could be a real thing, though.
Mm-hmm.
So at the time, I was making six figures and still climbing, at my job. And I had my wife was pregnant with our second kiddo, and I talked with her, I talked with my brother, my business partner at the time, and I said, hey, I think that this could be really something, but it's not going to be really something if I'm just stealing time to do it. And if my business partner is stealing time to do it, just kind of scratching it out at lunchtime and after hours and stuff like that. So we each quit our jobs, and we went without pay for so I went from six figures to nothing for about 10 months. And, you know, God bless my wife, because she never thought she never thought she was signing up to be the provider.
Yeah.
So, and just grinded it through and went rocking and rolling. I remember when we got our first shipment of our own branded product in, got a container in, we had rented a warehouse in South Austin off of Craigslist, didn't have a dock, so the container just rolled up, and we had to like climb into the container and hand unload all of these weights down off of it. And we had recruited a bunch of our friends from the CrossFit community to do so, and then we sold them, and we're like, wow, that's awesome. So that was how we founded Fringe. And, you know, and by the way, when I started paying myself 10 months in, I started paying myself $10 an hour. So even though I was paying myself, it kind of still sucked.
Yeah. And it's just, and that's, you know, going back to what are we doing, chasing money like it's a drug, or are we trying to just make our life something that we want it to be? And a lot of people don't take, again, the time to step back and look at, hey, when we're chasing money and then you get the raise, and so you get the fancier car, and then you get the fancier house, and then you get the fancier things, your lifestyle and your things go up with the salary. And so then you get into this place where you have to, like you were saying, you have to have the salary now, because you have all the things that make you have to have the salary. And so something really beneficial that Alex, my wife, and I did is we wrote down just 5 years from now, what would make our life awesome? Like, what does our morning look like? What does day-to-day look like? What does our life look like? What are the things we have? What are we doing? All of these things. And then we put money values to everything. And then we also added in like kind of a wish list of, oh, it would be awesome to have a country club membership. I don't have that yet, but I know the price point of when I'm making this amount of money. I know where that kind of fits in. And so we looked at, for the life that we want to have and the travel we want to do and everything, what's the amount of money a year do we need to make? It's this amount. And then when we looked at that amount, we were like, man, that's not a lot of money. We don't need this $500,000 job. We don't need this thing that's going to absorb our life and make us miserable day to day to have all this money. What we need to do is figure out how to create the morning we want to have, how to create these things along the way to make this amount of money that gives us the life we want to have. And then everything on top of that's just bonus. But that has really helped shape just kind of our lives, how we run things here, and kind of the ultimate in-game goals of, and it didn't cap the top of like the money I'm trying to make, but it capped the types of things I'm willing to do in the balance of my life. Like it capped, I guess, going back to the burners, it capped what I'm willing to do to these burners to get this thing. And it's not just, I want this thing going up and up and up and up. It's been really cool for us.
I love it. I actually have done something similar just by myself, not with my wife. So it's silly now that I think about it, but thank you for the idea of inviting her into that visioning exercise, let's say, because I can easily, if we come up with a vision, then I can come up with the budget and figure out how to get to there.
Yeah.
So that's a great suggestion.
Yeah, it's been really impactful for us. And then it's really helped us also have the conversations about, especially as we're working up to making the amount of money we want to make, how do we budget? When do we spend money on this? When do we spend money on this? And kind of just how we prioritize stuff.
Yeah. Well, and to bounce back just a little bit to what you're talking about in terms of you get a raise and then you raise your standard of living. So one phrase for that is the hedonistic treadmill. The other thing about the hedonistic treadmill is, so one aspect is that the higher your income rises, the higher your lifestyle or expenditures raise. But the other element of the hedonistic treadmill is the less utility you get out of those expenditures. So I think it's easy to think about it like, for me, for example, when I was in college and didn't have very much money, I would go on dates with my wife to Chili's, and we freaking loved our Chili's dates. And I remember that we could eat at Chili's all in, including tip, all that stuff, for like $22. And so like that was it, and we would look forward to that date night at Chili's. But I would say that if I was going to say to my wife today, hey baby, it's date night, and then I took her to Chili's, and it was the $22 dinner or whatever at Chili's, maybe it wouldn't be fulfilling for either her or me, because our standards have raised.
So every dollar spent back then felt so much better than the dollar spent right now.
Yeah. And people also talk about this as well in terms of, hey, I want this item or I want that item, like a tangible item, and then a lot of times they get it and then they're like, you know what, this kind of sucks. So I was I'm friends with Noah Kagan, who's another internet entrepreneur or whatnot, and he had bought a Jaguar F-Type a few years back, and he was telling me that he just wasn't thrilled with it. Like he thought it was going to be really awesome. So he ended up selling it, and he bought a Mazda Miata, and he likes the Miata way more.
Was the Jaguar a convertible?
I'm not sure if it was a vert or not. I think it might have been a coupe. I don't recall.
Yeah.
But the Miata was a convertible.
Yeah. And Miata, my wife and I have talked about getting a Mazda Miata, because it's just like, convertible is the cool part.
Yeah.
Like it's not, because you're not trying to be, when you're in a convertible, you look like a douche. You do.
I don't know if you saw what I drove here. It's literally right over there, and it is a convertible.
But, so here's the thing. When you're in a convertible, it feels so good to be exposed out and everything. So I am all for the convertible, but no one's looking at someone in a convertible being like, oh, that's Peter, he's cool. Like, that's not what they're thinking when they see you.
Oh, you're crushing me.
But when you're in it, it feels so good. So we were like, well, how do we? It's like, so the convertible. It's the
Convertibles
experience.
aren't cool. I got it.
Well, no. They are cool, but they don't make other people think you're cool. It's the experience of the convertible that's the really cool part.
So I do enjoy having a convertible, by the way.
Yeah,
so I didn't realize that I didn't look good in it.
Amazing. Yeah, and it's the same thing. It's like you pull up next to someone in a Corvette. What do you look over? What are you thinking when you look over at them? You're like, man, I wish I was in that car, but you're not like, that person's cool.
Yeah. Do you watch the show Silicon Valley?
Oh, I love that show.
So they have a a Corvette in there.
Uh-huh.
That's a convertible.
Yeah. Oh, and he looks at himself in the mirror.
Yeah, he looks at himself in the mirror and he's like, "Oh, I look like a douche."
Yeah. But the experience of being in one is great. And so I completely understand the Mazda Miata, because now it's like, look, if I don't look cool anyway from the outside, a Miata doesn't matter. They're not going to look at me and be like, well, he's in a Miata. It would be cool if he was in a Corvette. But on the inside, you're still in a convertible.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, so I used to think Miatas were chick cars,
Uh-huh.
but they're totally cool.
Yeah.
And they're cheap as dirt.
Mm-hmm.
Like, reliable, cheap, fun to drive.
Yeah. It's
All
checking all the boxes.
Yeah. Not terribly fast.
Yeah.
But fun.
Yeah.
So.
That's awesome. All right, so something that also interests me about your office setup at Fringe is, like we talked about, you have the gym in so it's an office, warehouse, and gym and showroom. So you can go in there, physically see what you're doing. You can put your hands on it. You can play around with it, and then you can buy things in person there. Also, they do free shipping. So even if you don't go there, free shipping. All right.
Absolutely.
So anyway, something that I find interesting, and it's something that happens to me here too, is you have a gym at your office, but I think, and I might be wrong where you work out, but I think you work out over at Atomic Athlete.
I do, yes.
So same thing here is a lot of people think that we have it easier because I work in a gym, he must work out all the time. And it's like, well, actually, when I'm up here, I'm coaching classes and coaching clients, and then it's dead and dark in here, and I've got no one to work out with. It's like, it is so hard to get yourself to do things on your own, and that community atmosphere and just working out with a community and friends and workout partners helps so much. So I was curious if you had any opinions on, or I was just curious of how much you actually used your facility at Fringe to work out yourself, and how much you relied on other coaches and things like that.
So no one's ever asked me that, and it's a fantastic question, by the way. I work out very infrequently in my gym that I own.
And it's, 100 feet away from your desk?
Yeah, if that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really got a great community going on now. We've really been building it up, and on any given week we have 200 or so people cycling in and out through it. So it's really great and fun. The reason that I don't work out in my own gym very often is because I often want to work out at times that I actually feel would be slightly disrespectful to my employees. Emphasis on slightly.
Yeah.
But, if my warehouse guys are like sweating to get orders out, and I'm in the gym, lifting, which is some of my mental release and like fun time, I feel bad about it, basically.
Yeah, and it happens to us in here. It's like when I'm in here, I'm coach. Mm-hmm. I'm a coach. And if I'm working out and someone has an issue, I have to stop what I'm doing and go help with the issue, because that's what they deserve. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure the same thing happens with you and your employees. Is if you're working out, not only are they working hard and actually getting work done for your company while you're taking a break, which it's fine to take a break, but if they need something, it's kind of your job to prioritize that over what you're doing. So having a real wall there where it's just like, no, this is my time. This is not business. This is my time to work out and work on me type of stuff. I feel like that probably helps removing that so you're not around.
Absolutely. And then the other thing is, or another major element, is that I have outsourced the coaching of me to Atomic.
Yeah.
So you had talked before about how you'd emailed me, and I emailed back a couple of times. Mostly you're emailing with Sandrine, my executive assistant. So she's taken over many aspects of my calendar and scheduling stuff. At Atomic, I don't have to think about the programming or anything like that. I just walk in and it's there. They've written the programming. I don't have to worry about it. So when I talked about selecting what I'm going to focus on in my life, I am not going to focus on the programming for myself. I'm going to outsource that to somebody else. And
now your health burner gets to stay high without more energy going into it.
Exactly. And so this is, sometimes people, I'd mentioned before, so at Fringe, we exist to help people improve lives through strength. And the main ways we do it are by helping people build amazing garage gyms and by helping entrepreneurs like yourself build thriving community gyms. And sometimes there are conflicts between the two. There have been a few cases where a friend or maybe just associate who owns a gym has said, hey, why are you focusing on garage gyms? This is kind of stealing clients from me or something like that. And one of the things that I tell them is I believe that there's room for both.
Yeah.
And indeed, at this point, I have an amazing garage gym at my house.
Yeah.
Although I actually rarely work out in it.
Yeah.
But I have an amazing garage gym at my house. I own a gym. And I'm a member of Atomic. And I'm a member of 24 Hour Fitness. So if someone were ever to ask me, like let's say a potential client of yours, hey, should I quit CrossFit City Limits and build a garage gym? I would say, you should totally build a garage gym.
Yeah.
I don't know that you should quit CrossFit City Limits.
Yeah.
Because I think that the two can complement each other.
Absolutely. And I completely agree. I have a bunch of y'all's equipment at my house. My trunk is full of it. So, and that doesn't mean, it's like the community and the workout partners and the coaching, and of course I'm going to say the coaching, but is so incredibly valuable. What we try and tell people all the time, because we do have a lot of open gym hours, and what we really try and tell people is you could have the best program for you in the world, and you're doing it alone in open gym without a coach, and you're going to have so much better results and experience in life if you do the worst program in the world with a group of people. It's just so powerful to have that group around you. And so, but I also think it's powerful to, it's like, it's not bad to work out by yourself every now and then. It's not bad to be at home and be like, oh, my neighbors that I'm introducing to this thing, or my friends, or whatever, we're going to have a Sunday, or when the gym's closed, or whatever it might be. Yeah, so I don't think they're competing things. I think the type of person who would work out by themselves in their garage, maybe with a friend or two, without a coach, is a very different type of person that's going to work out in a gym. And you got to find what works for you.
Oh, absolutely.
But yeah, I know what we deliver, and when our people say they just got something from Fringe and they're building out, what else should they buy? I tell them things to buy because it's not a competitive. Them having stuff at their house only shows how much they love us. It's like, it's not showing that if they didn't love us, they'd quit, and we'd never know that they were building a garage gym. We'd never know it. Yeah. But when they love us, they're asking us how to build their garage gym out, and then now they've got 2 places they can work out, which is just a huge benefit. And then they usually goof around in their place once, maybe a little bit here and there, but it's like their workouts and their community and their friends and their coaches are here. So I agree with you. I don't think they're competing at all. Because if I thought they were competing, this would be the last conversation to put in front of everybody. It's like, oh, here's Peter. He's in town. He owns one of the biggest equipment supplier businesses in the world. He's in town. He's right there. He's got a gym that's free in South Austin. It's like, this would be the absolute dump. But it's like, there's just so much benefit you get from being part of a community that goes just so far beyond that. But also at the same time, being able to walk into your garage and work out every now and then, it's why I've got all the equipment at home too. It's just so powerful. So
about the community, one of the things that they say about people and jobs is they say people don't leave jobs, they leave managers because they don't like the way that their relationship with their manager or something like that. Similarly, I think that people tend to join. So what we at Fringe call a gym like this is we call it a community gym, and we just internally we draw a pretty big difference between community gym and then what I consider the opposite of a community gym, which we call Globo Gym.
Yeah.
24-hour fitness golds, that sort of thing. What we believe at Fringe is that people often join community gyms because they have some driving goal, want to look good naked, want to be stronger. Maybe they do want to make friends. Maybe they want to compete at CrossFit or something like that. There's a whole basket of reasons why someone, like not just surface level, but a little bit deeper about why they would join a community gym. But the reason that they stay at a community gym is, in our opinion, in most cases, the culture and community, not the actual training in many cases. Like the training can't be bad, the coaching can't be bad, but it's the community and culture that really form the nucleus of the experience and like pulls everyone together and keeps them rolling. So that's our belief, and that's what we try to work with people on. To inculcate that deeply.
And I completely agree with that. I take every opportunity I can to work out with classes too, because of that community feeling. It's different working out around people. Not only is it way more fun, you get to joke around in a different way with people, but just as far as your training goes, it's just like when I'm on my own, it's just like I can get there, but I have to work hard to get there. When I'm in a class, I don't think about it. It's make it look good, go hard, and it's never a question, am I going to stop? When I'm by myself, it's like, am I going to stop? No. Am I going to stop? No. And you have to keep battling that. So what I end up doing when I'm doing the mix of garage gym and community gym, I use my garage gym time as, and we like to do our programming with like hard days, easy days, because you can't go hard all the time. But you also, there's active recovery days, and that's different. So you can have an easy day where you're doing the minimum amount you need to do to create a stimulus. So I like to use my on my own time for those types of things, because it's just, I don't have to try to get up for it in a class, and it just takes so much energy to get up for it on my own, that when I'm on my own, I'm still going to play around with the barbell, I'm still going to do squats, I'm still going to pick up the sandbag and do all this stuff, but I'm not putting that extra pressure, and it's just, so I use that as almost the easy days, and then I use in here as a mixture of the easy, medium, and hard days. But that's where I kind of learned over time to value that time, and it's like, okay, now it's so much easier to pause in this position and actually sit here, because I'm not watching Peter right next to me just going crazy. So I think there's a huge value in that stuff. So here's, in your opinion, if someone was going to start building out just some things at their house, what would be the first couple pieces of equipment that you would recommend?
So it's funny. I actually get asked this question a lot.
Nice.
And I always turn it back on whoever's asking me.
I was going to say, I was like, I can answer it for you with what I think.
Well, so actually, what I say is, what are the goals of this hypothetical person? What are they trying to achieve with the equipment? Because, to be honest with you, I think the minimum effective, you talked earlier about the minimum, kind of like minimum effective dose, essentially, to create a stimulus. I would say that the minimum effective equipment that I would recommend is basically a pull-up bar and a kettlebell. That's the bare minimum. However, if someone's goals don't really include, like maybe they just want to be a faster runner, or maybe they want to lose weight or something like that, then it's like, so if they want to be a faster runner, it's like, okay, well, actually, you don't need either of those.
Yeah.
You pretty much just need to go run.
Yeah.
And maybe you can work with somebody to have some body weight stuff to build durability and resilience.
Mm-hmm.
If they just want to lose weight, I'm going to be like, I have the worst news in the world for you. Nothing there is going to do it.
So that's something
this is what's going to do it.
That and this.
Yeah, fair.
Those two things. And that's something we just hammer. And people are so sick of hearing me talk about it, but it's like, you just need to, I get it. When you start working out, you think, once I start working out, this and this and this is going to happen. But when you look across at a community of people who work out consistently and been doing it for a long time, you can't tell who the fittest people are. You can tell, like this, who eats well and who sleeps.
Yeah.
And it's like that. It's like that person, that person, that person, that person, because it's all the jacked, ripped, toned, looking the way they want people. And you can have incredible performance without the body that looks like so if you're gonna piece it all together, those pieces are so important.
Yeah. So that's where I always go. I always go back to, what are your goals?
Mm-hmm.
And then we can go from there. So how about I change your question just a little bit?
Okay.
And I tell you a few of my favorite things. And what my fitness goals are is, I want to be well-rounded in the 10 areas of fitness that CrossFit espouses.
Awesome.
So for me, and someone who had similar goals, I would say pull-up bar, squat rack. This is not necessarily in order. So pull-up bar, squat rack, barbell,
mm-hmm.
bumper plates if you can afford them.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't, just go with iron.
Mm-hmm.
Bench, 2 kettlebells.
Mm-hmm. 2 different weights.
Two
right?
different weights.
Yeah.
Possibly dumbbells in a couple of different weights.
And then I would
sandbag.
Just to interrupt real fast, I would say dumbbell or kettlebell, kind of interchangeable there. In kettlebell, if you want to learn the kettlebell techniques, dumbbells, if you're more, so in here we call it CrossFit and boot camp. Our boot camp variation in the same class, our boot camp variation is simpler, lighter. Not easier, but instead of doing squat snatches, maybe they're doing kettlebell swings. Simpler, lighter, not easier. And a lot of times it's harder. But a lot of people with the kettlebells don't like messing with the kettlebell technique. And for those people, dumbbells would be almost equivalent, really good tool. But for the person that is like, I want to learn that kettlebell technique because there's so much involved in it, and it's, in my opinion, really, really cool, the kettlebells would be the way to go.
So one of the things that I would just slightly disagree with you on that is, I think that the kettlebell swing, particularly a Russian kettlebell swing, is an absolutely, let's say, magical exercise.
Yeah.
Because the technique is very simple to learn. I do think kettlebell clean or kettlebell snatch, the technique is nuanced.
Yeah.
And can be somewhat difficult to learn. I think a kettlebell swing is actually fairly easy to learn, and it really gets it gets the posterior chain power development going in athletes who may never have really worked that.
Yeah.
We're here in Texas. A lot of people, more people are getting familiar with CrossFit and Oli type stuff.
Yeah.
But prior to this, if anybody knew how to do a power clean, they learned it is a male, and they learned it in football in high school.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And we get those people. We get college athletes all the time. We get professional football players that don't know how to do a proper clean because they've done it the high school way their whole careers.
Yeah. So that's part of the reason why I really like kettlebells, even with relatively like low skill or new trainees.
And your point's good because you can take a dumbbell and swing it behind, and everyone's seen those videos.
It just kind of sucks.
Yeah, and you look at the video and you're like, oh, perfect, I can do that, and then you do it one time and you're like, I can't. No, that doesn't work. So yeah, the kettlebell for that is really good.
So that's one of my beliefs there.
And you can do everything you can with a dumbbell with a kettlebell, vice versa. But yeah, the kettlebell swing absolutely better for the swings. And if you're just willing to learn that grip, which doesn't take very long, and you can even get little pads for your wrists if you don't like that. You can do thrusters, you can do presses, so you can do everything you can with a dumbbell with a kettlebell. Yeah. So that's a really good point.
So that would be for me the minimum gym is basically pull-up bar, squat rack, barbell, some plates, 2 kettlebells for me, a few dumbbells. I can't remember if I mentioned bench already, and then I just love sandbag work. And sandbags are cheap and evil. Yeah. So I love those.
Oh, I love sandbags too. So what weight sandbag or sandbags?
So I train a lot at...
And I guess everyone's different.
Everyone's different.
For you in particular.
I train a lot at Atomic, and Atomic just RX is an 80-pounder for males, and so I just do most of my work with an 80-pounder. I will mention, if you're not used to sandbag work... So the beauty about a sandbag is you buy the shell, and then you go to Home Depot, and you buy 50 or 100 pounds of sand. 50 pounds of sand at Home Depot, I think, is like $4.
Yeah, it's really cheap.
Right. So you can buy a sandbag.
And it's literally just called play sand.
Play sand, yep. And you can put a bunch of sand in there. You don't have to load it up to 80 pounds right away. You could start it at 50 and kind of get used to it, used to the movements, and then you could load it up a little heavier. But yeah, I do most of my work with an 80-pound sandbag, and Atomic does a lot of sandbag get-ups. Similar to what I had mentioned to you about the kettlebell swing, one of the reasons why I love sandbag get-ups is that you get a lot of the benefits of, let's say, a Turkish get-up without having to teach anyone technique.
Exactly.
Because a sandbag get up, all you do is you put the sandbag over either of your shoulders, and then you have the person basically sit down and lie on their back until either their back or the sandbag touches the ground, and then they stand up. Now, there are some preferred techniques for that. However, so sandbag get ups suck.
Yeah.
But I've never seen anyone injure themselves doing a sandbag get up because it's so hard to injure yourself.
The only thing that we see, because we'll do get-ups a lot, and we'll use dumbbells here. But the only one, and we don't see anyone get injured. But the funky thing we see going on is as they're making the move over, the opposite knee comes in, and then it's like the knee in squat. So then when they're trying to get up to the knee, they've got this nasty knee in position. But I've never seen anyone get hurt because of that. I've just seen that. And it's always the people that also squat with their knees in. So we see the same issues over and over again. But that's the one little piece. Whereas if you're doing Turkish get-ups in a very fatiguing workout, all the time, you see that stable shoulder, and then for 1 second you lose concentration for 1 second, you get all those shoulders moving around. So yeah, for intense, hard, grueling, fast, or long, slow, heavy, just the regular get-up is awesome. It's a lot of fun.
So a few other things that I do with my sandbag is I'll do cleans, and then sometimes I'll do cleans and just throw it over the shoulder, and then just go do that for reps.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll do clean and press, and then pop it on the ground and do that for reps. I do a fair bit of burden runs or like rucks, basically. Yeah. Just throw that sandbag and just go and embrace the suck.
Yeah.
Basically, those are probably most of what one other thing you can do with the sandbag I forgot is you can put it over one end of a barbell that's unloaded, and then you take the other end of the barbell and you basically use the sandbag like a landmine.
Oh,
and so you can actually do a lot of landmine.
And it holds it in place.
Yep.
I almost emailed you last night, and we're like, because y'all have the double landmine that comes off of the rig, and I was almost like, Peter, bring a double landmine.
Missed that.
But I'll be ordering that from you guys. But I'm also going to play around with the sandbag landmine thing. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I learned that at Atomic, and it's a real help, or a real cool just little hack.
Yeah.
So
that's cool.
Yeah, I love sandbags. So you had said you had an answer though. What
okay. So before we get there, because I have one more sandbag question. So we got so excited about sandbags. This was 6 years ago, maybe. we bought sandbags. We actually had, and I think you know Daniel Dow.
Yeah.
So Daniel Dow, he goes to Atomic. He's
Yep.
he's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy. So we went to high school with him. We know him
Oh, okay.
really well.
I'd forgotten that. Yeah.
So anyway, we were like, well, what sandbags are they using?
Mhm.
So what happened to us is we were all excited, got them, filled them up. Day one, class runs with it, and it was the coolest class we've ever had. It was like, that was awesome. This is perfect. Class 2 comes in, and then we're looking at these sandbags, and they are soaking wet, and they're disgusting. And so we were just like, oh no. We thought we just solved the universe, and now we have all these. And I get it's like, okay, well, it's grimy, you're going to be sweaty anyway, but it's different when it's someone else's sweat.
Yeah.
So is there a way around that besides just having 200 sandbags?
So Atomic has a lot of sandbags, and the other thing that they do whenever they do sandbag work is they typically throw them out in the sun afterwards.
And let them
That said, it
bake.
just dries them out. You
Yeah.
know, the sweat's still there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's an issue.
Yeah, that's the one thing. And I was like, well, maybe we can get like a sandbag sleeve.
Yeah.
And then like a I'm sure you've got kids, so maybe these things, but I'm sure there's something you put on beds where if they pee the
Yep.
bed, it doesn't go to the mattress. So there's got to be a sleeve you can put on sandbags, and then you just pop it off after each class. You go wash them, or I don't know. But that's been our one hang up, and we'll bring our sandbags out. So we've got a 60, an 80, a 100, a 135, and a 155. And we'll bring them out when we do like our partner competitions, because we're like, well, you're here for a partner competition. Sorry that it might be a little gross. Here we go. And we do those. We call them dubs. We do dubs first Saturday of every month.
Nice.
We get teams together to do a little partner competition here. But that's the one piece that we haven't figured out is how to have one sandbag last multiple classes without it just being a little gross. Because barbells you can clean off. Everything else is metal. It's real easy to clean. But okay, so going back to what I would get. So what we see all the time is the first thing everyone always gets is a rower. And that would be the last thing I would get, because a rower is like $1,000. They're awesome, and we were talking about this earlier. Especially the Concept 2 rowers are bomb proof. It's like you can't break them if you try. If you dropped them but it's like they work. They're so good. But the reason I wouldn't go that route is, in my opinion, it's like, especially if you're doing something like Atomic or CrossFit, it's like an Atomic's very similar to what we do here, for those of you who don't know. But we get drawn to this stuff because of the variety and the different challenges. And for me, it is boring to sit down on a rower. So a lot of people, first thing they buy is they shell out for this thing, and they're like, I'll do it when I'm watching TV. Then they realize it's too loud to watch TV and do it unless you got earphones on. Which is fine. But then I would say, instead of having that first purchase be $1,000 for one thing that you might be a little disappointed in how much you use it, I would spend all of that money, and then I would start filling in the gaps of what don't you do here? What are the things? And that's something as an affiliate owner is, there's some toys that we haven't bought yet that it's been on my wish list for so long because I have to buy 20 of them for a class. And it doesn't make sense to buy one of them. But for you at home in your garage gym, it's you. Or if you're going to work out with 4 people, it's pretty easy to share one cool piece of equipment. So I would go into the fringe areas, which is Fringe anyway. I'd go into the fringe areas, and so the things that I would go with is the sandbag. It's so much fun to play around with. So I would do sandbag. I would do y'all have a yoke squat rack that you can push. You can put on your back, so it's a sled. It's a squat rack you can use as a fat bar pull-up. I would get something like that. That's multi-purpose, but also in a very different capacity than what you're going to get on in classes. The other things that I like is you had mentioned throwing the sandbag on your back and rucking. So I've got a ruck backpack that I like a whole lot. So for me, I look at it like, what can I do at home? Or I live over by Zilker, so what else can I do when I go over to the pull-up bars at Auditorium Shores? It's like, what are things that can assist me to do things that I don't do all the time? It's like I do clean and jerks all the time. I do these things. And so I would prioritize the more novel things and then pack in the staples of barbell, squat rack. Or if you're using the yoke, you've already got that squat rack. But bench, dumbbells, kettlebells, those types of things. But I would absolutely have those on your list. And if you leave the rower out and you've got $1,000 to spend, you get all of this stuff. Like, it's all of it. And so instead of having one rower, you get all of this stuff, and then buy a rower a year from now. That's the route I would go.
So rowers are great. One of the things that I often talk to people about is, just like you mentioned, basically the utility of your money. Yeah. So for $1,000, you can actually buy a lot of non-rower.
You can have an entire garage gym.
Exactly. The other thing I talk to people about is utility of your floor space. So Concept 2 rowers, they do stand up. And take up not a ton of space, but then when they're down, so you do have to have an open space to plop them down on. And so just look at utility of your space. You know, for example, one of the things a lot of people talk to me about getting either a GHD or a glute ham raise for their garage. And I always tell people, no, don't put, if you have anything like a normal garage, don't put a GHD in there.
If you've got space, get one.
Go for it.
Awesome. But if you don't have the space, they're huge.
They're massive.
They take up so much room.
Yeah, and so I'm like, don't put that in there.
And we've had someone offer to give us another GHD for free. And I was like, no, we don't. It's like, we have a big gym. And it's like, we don't have the space for another one. It's like, they take up so much room.
They do, absolutely. So let me bounce back to something else that I wanted to mention to you. So I mentioned to you earlier that we, internal to Fringe, use the phrase or term community gym to refer to essentially CrossFit boxes, powerlifting gyms, weightlifting gyms, even boot camps, things like Atomic. What do you think about that term? Because, one other thing, just background. We have a lot of different gyms that we supply, and we were trying to figure out, a lot of them are CrossFit affiliates, but a lot of them aren't. And so we were trying to figure out the commonalities between these gyms, and typically there's an entrepreneur or possibly team of entrepreneurs that own the gym. They typically have relatively few clients as contrasted with a Globo gym. They also tend to charge those clients more than a Globo gym does, but the clients tend to actually show up and use the services, whereas in a Globo gym, the clients, like a very small percentage of the client base actually comes. And then they also tend to focus literally on building community and culture within the gym, and they also tend to focus more holistically on health than a Globo gym does. So what do you think of the term community gym for that?
I like it. I think it's hard to put because I agree with everything you just said, and it's exactly what we're trying to do here. And it's hard to put that into one word. And community is the thing that kind of gets thrown around on these things a lot, but it's exactly what it is. It's your place. You've got work, you've got home, and you've got your gym, and maybe you've got church, but it's like, it's your place. It's where you belong. So, and because the other word that kind of comes up to me is like local, but community I feel like is so much better because it means local, but it also means, you hear the word relationship when you hear community, and local just is a place. So I don't like the word local better, but I think it's going to be hard to find a single word better than community that describes what we're doing here. But it is hard because that doesn't talk about the health side of things and those conversations we have. It doesn't talk about the functionality and how it's not about working out like we're CrossFit Games athletes. It's about setting ourselves up to be able to move and play with our kids and do everything we need to do for the rest of our lives pain-free, to be able to do the things that we want to do. But again, every gym's different. So a powerlifting gym is going to have different goals than what we have, and other CrossFit gyms have completely different goals and ways they do things than how we do them. So I think if you're going to lump us all together, I think community gym's the way to do it.
Local gym is interesting. I do think community is probably better, but I hadn't thought about local gym because I ride bikes fairly often, and I remember when I was growing up, especially when the bike catalogs started to really come into play, and then after that, the internet. And there was this phrase in the biking community, I'm not sure if they still use it, but it was your LBS, your local bike shop. And it was kind of, at first, an anti-catalog thing. You know, don't buy from Performance Bike or Nash Bar, buy from your LBS.
Come to your neighbor.
Yeah, because Nash Bar or Performance, they may offer a lower price, but when you screw up your bike, they're not going to fix your bike. Whereas your local bike shop's going to. So
in the local, especially in Austin, but you deal with people all around the world. In Austin, it's very different because it really is local. Traffic is so bad. Depending on when you're going to go to the gym, if you're someone who works 9 to 5, works out either before or after that, it's like you're sitting in traffic. So your gym needs to be close to where you work, or it needs to be close to where you live. Or you pass by it on the way in between those two things. And so the local aspect in Austin, it does have a big impact. And it's like, and that's one of the saddest things that happens to us here, is we have members that love us. We love them. They move from here to South Austin, and they're like, I want to keep being a member, this and that, and then they're fighting it, and we tell them all right off the bat, like, try it. But also, it's like, if the commute is too much for it, it's like you have to do something that you can sustain, and you can't sustain adding 45 minutes here and back. It's like, I get it, you love us, thank you, but it's like you got to do what works for your life, and it's like you got to go explore other gyms that work for your life close to you. So in Austin, the local part it's just, you know, there's a certain radius that you can get to that makes sense for your life, and that's the unfortunate part. And I think in other parts of the country, in different smaller towns, you can drive 15 miles to go get to the gym you want to go to. And in here, you can drive past, well, there's a gym on every block, but you can drive past 10 gyms to get to your gym, but that gym can't be 15 miles away. It doesn't make sense with Austin's traffic.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you for the feedback on that.
Yeah. So, something that I wanted to ask you is, so I know you're working out at Atomic, but I heard recently, because y'all started doing a Monday podcast thing at Fringe.
We did, yeah.
Which is super cool. So I know you gotten back into soccer a little bit. So I just wanted to ask, why do you work out? And then, have you heard of the Centenarian Olympics?
No, I've never heard of this. Tell me about that.
I think you're going to eat this up. So this was a guy, Peter Attia, and he shows up. I think he's friends with Tim Ferriss. He's shown up on like the Joe Rogan podcast. He's a doctor, but he's also done a lot of really world-class physical things in his life. He used to power lift, but he's done like swims where he swims across oceans for days, like crazy things. Anyway, so he has since left that stuff behind, and he was struggling to find like purpose in his workouts. So he came up with what he calls the Centenarian Olympics. So if he can make it to 100 years old, what are the things that he wants to be able to do? So as a doctor, he's a longevity doctor, and so his practice helps people live longer. And what he sees happen is as you get older and older, your body breaks down, and you stop being able to do the things that make living life as good as it was 10, 15 years before your mind breaks down. And then, of course, before ultimately you die. And so he's trying to figure out what does it take to keep your body up to speed with your mind so you don't have this giant gap. Because so many people think of, well, I don't want to live to be 100 because they're imagining this person that can't get around and do these things. But it's like, but what if you can get around and do these things? So he came up with, I haven't found a complete list of what it is, but he came up with he needs to be able to do a 30-pound goblet squat because kids, grandkids run at you and you need to be able to grab them and pick them up without falling over. You need to be able to get on and off the floor. You need to be able to carry 2 bags of groceries in each hand up 3 flights of stairs and down. So he has this whole list of things that, you need to be able to put 30 pounds up over your head so you can ride on a plane and you don't need help putting your stuff in the overhead bin. So he's come up with, at 100 years old, if I make it to 100, what are the physical things I need to be able to do? And then he backs off of that and he's like, so that means at age 80 I need to be able to do this, because he knows the physical aspects are going to diminish over time. And then at 70 I need to be able to do this, and at 50. So what happens, and I think me and you are aligned on this area, is we're kind of in a world, you're selling equipment and I'm coaching a lot of 20-year-olds that see the CrossFit games and they just want to, and they're missing the big picture. It's like, we can have that cake and perform really well and go hard and have fun. We can do all of these things, but we have to keep the long game in our head. And if we're wearing a weight belt, it teaches us to brace our core the wrong way. Not only are you not developing the muscle there, you're actually developing the motor pattern to poof out and use the wrong muscles to brace your core. And so all of these people are getting caught up in the competition side of things, and they're not understanding the training side of things that can support competition, but also year after year after year after year makes you better and better and better, and can actually set your life up. If you're squat and your knees come in and you're wearing a weight belt and back's going around because you don't know how to stabilize, it doesn't matter if you're squatting 350 pounds right now. It's like you haven't learned the basics of a squat, and when you're 100, you need to know the basics of the squat. And so people are playing this real short game, and then they get burned out, and then they start blaming CrossFit. And it's like, no, you're doing CrossFit wrong. Because
you're doing CrossFit like an asshole.
Yeah, exactly. You're doing CrossFit in a way that makes everyone else in the industry make fun of CrossFitters. It's like you're acting like every day is a competition, and every day you test what you can do, and you never train and get better. So in here what we do is we do a mixture, and we're very specific of today is a training day. We're not taking your score. You're going to go hard, you're going to get out of breath. It's going to feel like CrossFit. Everything about it is going to be the same, except we're pausing overhead and we're checking in on these positions for every 2 reps. Or we're just doing things in this specific way, knowing it's going to make you go, your time isn't going to be as good, but this is going to train us so then when we do test, our fitness and everything can be up higher. So I guess that was a long-winded way of kind of showing you the big picture of what we're trying to do here. And what I feel like distinguishes us from most other gyms out there. But from what I've heard you talk about with your training and stuff, I feel like you've got that long vision in your training going on as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just turned 40 last November. As we record today, it's February 2020, so I've a few months into my 40s. I am really focused on maintaining a high level of athleticism as long as possible and extending essentially my youthful life as much as I can. So it's very interesting, this centenarian Olympics, because that is congruent, let's say, with some things that I've been thinking about lately.
And so my purpose, and we help people in here define, like, why are you working out? And my purpose is, it's almost exactly what you said earlier. It's I don't want to be limited by my fitness or an injury or pain in anything I do in my life. So that doesn't mean if I've never water skied before, I should be great at water skiing.
Mm-hmm.
But I shouldn't not try or participate in something that I want to participate in because I'm limited reasonably by my fitness and injury, pain, or anything like that. And so I train to keep the balance in my life, and it's not the only burner. It's one of many burners. I train to keep the fitness and mainly the quality of life that allows me to do anything else I want. But with that, it's like I can't only focus on my back squat number because knee sleeves, weight belt, ollie shoes, low bar back squatting, it's like wide stance. It's like I can do a lot of different things in my squat to get the number on the barbell to go up, but that don't have a direct transfer into what I want my life to be.
Yeah. Well, I 100% agree. So Todd Moore is one of the owners of Atomic, and I'm close with basically all the coaches at Atomic, but one of the things that Todd and I have in common is that he's about 6 months older than me, I think. And like literally 2 years ago, he came to me and he said, Pete, you and I don't ever need to be any stronger. And at the time, I was routinely squatting. I almost always do a high bar back squat, very rarely use a belt, although I do use shoes. And I was routinely squatting in the 300s, like low 300s. And Todd said, hey, Pete, you don't ever need to squat more than that ever again. And I thought about it because there have been times, my lifetime PR for squat is 385, which is a high bar back squat. I was belted for that one. And at the time, it's like 5 or more years ago, I was chasing 405 is really what I wanted. And then I kind of was like, F this. But it's actually been a long time. It's been at least 2 years. It's been 2 years now since I've squatted above 300. And as I'm searching for well-rounded fitness, and I'm searching, I want to maintain a high level of athleticism, I don't think, I may never squat above 300 again, just because there's diminishing returns to that amount of specific strength. And yeah, it just is not congruent with my life goals anymore. Additionally, I love being able to, you were talking about water skiing, I love being able to do things that seem cool to me, more or less at the drop of a hat. And the type of things that seem cool to me are not necessarily the type of things that seem cool to what I would call normals. So, for example, I can give you a few things that seem really cool that I'm glad that I did. I was in Tennessee a couple years ago, like 2 years ago, and I took a look at a map and I saw that the Great Smoky Mountains National Park was like 4 hours from where I was. I was there for business, and it just so happened that my business ended early, and I was like, oh yeah, I can light out and I can make this park. And so I hustled, got to the park. I had hoped that my business would end early, so I had packed a tent. Normally on business trips, you stay in a hotel. But I'd packed a tent just in case that might happen. So I actually drove that night until I got really tired, pulled over and camped out, woke up with the birds the next morning, made the rest of the drive to Great Smoky Mountain National Park, parked at the base of Mount LeConte, or LeConte, I can't remember how you pronounce it. And I was one of the first people to park there, and then I hiked up to the top. And in hiking up to the top, I was faster than everybody else on the trail. I was early, but also faster than people ahead of me. So I got to the top before anybody else. It was like freaking Narnia, man. I think it was May, but there was still snow up top. And because I was the first one to hike, like it was snowing. So there was just white powder that was undisturbed by anyone. And like, I was just walking through Narnia, is what it was. And
not being able to squat 405 pounds didn't affect that.
Had nothing to do with it.
Exactly.
And so then I hiked back down, got in the car, drove like hell to the Nashville airport so that I could make my flight. Actually pulled over at a truck stop, took a shower at a truck stop bathroom, and then got back to the airport and then got my flight back. So that hike up and down was a 14-mile hike.
Wow.
I don't recall the altitude or the altitude that I gained, but it was a few thousand feet. And sure, it was strenuous, but I was never like
able to do it at a drop of a hat. You didn't train for 2 months leading up to it. You were just ready to do this thing.
Exactly. So that was one thing. Another thing that I did also about 2 years ago is I was in the Croatian islands with some friends, and the island that we were on, there were some British brothers there who I had never heard of them before, and I'm forgetting their names right now, but they're famous adventure swimmers.
Okay.
So basically they go and do these really dangerous open water swims. So they gave a talk on this, and after the talk they said, hey, we're going to swim around this island, which was a 5-kilometer diameter, or a perimeter, island. Does anybody want to come with us? And I was like, hell yeah. And so I swam around this island, and after, which by the way, I think was actually extremely dangerous. So I would not advocate for someone to do it.
Did y'all have a boat with y'all at all? Just y'all swimming?
Just us swimming. And it was awesome. It was definitely me pushing my boundaries. I am a good swimmer. However, that's by far the longest that I've ever swum. And open water and all that. And it was amazing. So there have been a few other things like that, but I love to be able to just do that.
Yeah. And that's what the message I try and get into people's heads is, especially when it comes to the nutrition, and if you're not eating well and sleeping well and exercising in a way that makes sense for your life, then you're going to be limited. And so you get invited there, you get to choose. Because not everyone's going to be like, I want to do that. Yeah. But it wasn't, I can't do that.
Right.
It was, do I want to do this or not? And if you're overweight, if you're dealing with chronic diseases because of lifestyle choices, if you don't have the fitness, or you're working out so hard, this is what used to happen to me because I was an idiot. I'd get out of bed and I couldn't walk. Every morning I got out of bed and it was limping around, and then after about 5 minutes, joints would start working again because I was training mimicking CrossFit Games athletes. And I was a complete amateur. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And so we really try and open people up to creating the body and the lifestyle that gives you the freedom to choose to do everything, instead of an opportunity coming up that you want to do and you're like, I can't at least try. And it's so freeing to have the fitness and the lifestyle and the health that kind of lets you choose when you do things and what you do.
Yeah. And, to be honest, so the things that I think are cool do tend to the endurance-y, or like, relative, I guess maybe the low end of the endurance side. And it's just fun because a lot of times when you eat well, when you sleep appropriately, when you train appropriately, I have found that I get very in sync and in tune with my body. And when I'm very in sync and in tune with my body, I love pushing my body to its edge and seeing, like, I try to ride that edge.
Yeah.
And that's fun. There have been a few times where I've miscalculated and not ridden the edge. Thankfully, never dangerously so at this point. But it's just super fun.
What's an example of that?
Oh, well, I remember one time that I rode my bike out to Bastrop, and this was actually pre-CrossFit, but rode my bike out to Bastrop, and then in riding back, I just bonked.
Yeah.
And it's the endurance athletes talk about the bonk. This was the most I've ever bonked, where I was like, I just can't do this. Like, I'm done. Like, so I ride bikes a lot. I feel like biking is generally easy, and I know, like, you can totally put intensity to it, all this stuff.
Yeah.
But I generally think that making the pedals go half a revolution or one revolution, like,
especially when you get to pick the gear and your speed, and a hill's different, but like when you're choosing how fast you want the bike to go, riding a bike is so easy.
Right. And so I bonked, and like every pedal was just like a force of will to make it go. And I was just like, I just can't do this.
Yeah.
And I pulled over and called my wife and said, hey, baby, pick me up.
Yeah.
Like, and she was shocked.
Uh-huh.
But I was like, I just can't. I can't anymore.
Yeah. and you know, it's cool. You got to see where those lines are sometimes. And sometimes you get through it and sometimes you don't. I was doing something the other day, and I just had 50 pounds in a backpack, and I just started walking, and I was like, well, what if I get too far? It's like, then I call an Uber.
Yeah.
It's like, if I bonk out there, who cares? Like, I call an Uber. And, so it's cool. But, and also swimming around, it's like, that's scary, and you think of drowning, but also probably at any point you can take a left turn or right turn, depending on which direction you're going, and just head to the shore there.
So that's something else about the fitness and the choice, because when I looked at that, the island had a few cliffy type areas to the ocean, but not a ton. And so I figured, okay, if shit goes south, in my case it was a right turn, I'm just going to have to swim 50 yards to the right and then have a fairly crappy like clamber up. Like, there's only a few places where it was like a sheer cliff. Many places it was much more graded, and I'd have to maybe bushwhack a little bit and maybe cut my feet up a little bit and whatever. But before I went in, I knew that was a possibility.
Yeah, you had the backup plan in the head.
So, but to bonking also these days, with me being fairly in tune with my body, I can see it, feel it coming, and then I can modulate my effort. So I did a GoRuck challenge. I've done a few GoRuck challenges.
Oh, nice. We're doing one, and we're trying to get gym people to go. It's a all Austin event, but we're doing the GoRuck Light. It's on Memorial Day, which is a 4 to 5 hour. It's the Light challenge. So I'm curious if you've done the Light or if you've done like the big dogs.
I've done the big dogs, so to speak, but I'd be interested in doing a Light. I'll have to look at that. And in the first one, so I've done two actually. And the first one...
Were they the 12 or the 24 hour?
These were the 12.
Okay.
However, they were a while ago, and their old motto, which could still be their motto now, is under promise, over deliver. And so previously they were billed as 10 hours, but actually each of the two I did were 14.
Okay.
And they were also billed as 10 miles, but each of the two I did was, as best I can tell, around 18 miles or 18 to 20. And the first one was, I didn't really know what to expect. And it was pretty much just a suck fest all the way through. The second one...
And then just real quick, for people who don't know, the GoRuck challenges, you're wearing a backpack. I think in the one you're talking about, you probably had 30 pounds or 20?
I had... So I was going to say 50, but that actually sounds heavy. Maybe it was 30.
I think those, I think they're 30 if you weigh over 150 pounds, and 20. For the light one, it's 10 and 20.
Okay.
But they might have changed things.
I think it's 30.
But it's basically you've got a backpack with weight in it. You're with a group of people, and you have a cadre, someone who's making you do stuff.
Yep.
So that's what it is.
And you're not allowed to wear a watch. You're not allowed to bring a cell phone along, and they also bill it as a guided tour of your own city. And the cadre is making you do a lot of PT and making you suffer, but his main point is actually to push you beyond your perceived limits, but get you to the finish line. So up to a GoRuck challenge, they're actually trying, I mean, people do drop out for various reasons during the event, but they're actually trying to get most of the people to finish. But when you get above a challenge to like a heavy, and that's like the 20-hour things, they're actually trying to get people to drop. Yeah,
so I think the 24-hour one has a 50, and the only reason I know this is like I signed up for the thing 2 days ago, but the 24-hour one has a 50% completion rate. The 12-hour one has like a 97%, and the light one, which we're doing, is 100%.
Yeah. So The first one, like I mentioned, was just pretty much a suck fest, and I was not embracing the suck. I was hating life for a fair bit of it.
Yeah.
And so when I signed up for the second one, I said, you know what? I'm going to smile the whole way through.
Mm-hmm.
That's my only goal. I don't care about anything else. I'm just going to smile the whole way through. And I even remember when the cadre was checking my bag to make sure that I was appropriately weighted at the start, I had this big shit-eating grin on my face. And he said, you're not going to be smiling like that at the end. And I said, I am.
Have you come across David Goggins?
I know who he is.
He's that crazy, I think he was a Navy SEAL, just known for doing like multiple 100-mile races back-to-back weekends without ever having ran 100. He's just all about you go all the time. Incredibly fascinating guy if you get to hear him talk. But he said during I think it was him, I might be getting it wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was him, is in his Navy SEAL PT, he was like, it was my job to make sure that the instructors went home at night thinking of me and how they could not break me. So that's what I heard when you said that. It was just like, no matter what they did, it was like, I was telling my team, it's like, this is not about us. This is about, they're trying to break us and we are going to break them. It's like, they're going to go home tonight and be like, what the heck just happened today? Mm-hmm. So that's a really funny thing. Yeah, David Goggins is, you can go down into a deep hole with that guy. He is fascinating guy. But that was a cool thing. Just in his thing too is he's done so many things, and at this point he's incredibly fit. But he started all these things before he was this incredible fitness monster. So it was all mindset. And that was one of the mindsets that, like, he's just constantly telling him these stories in his head, and that's one of the. And he actually calls himself, he's David Goggins, and then people say he starts calling himself Goggins when he's in Goggins mode. And you gotta hear. I heard him on Joe Rogan for the first time. I feel like whenever you get introduced to somebody that you are interested in, if they've been on the Rogan podcast, that's a great place just to go hear their story. But he's fascinating.
Well, it reminds me, this is a little, I guess, more somber, but Man's Search for Meaning and Viktor Frankl. Have you heard of Man's Search for Meaning?
I've heard about it. I haven't read it, though. So
Viktor Frankl was in the concentration camps. And one of the things that he was fascinated with when he was in and then when he got out is there were happy people in the concentration camps, happy Jewish people in the concentration camps. And he was fascinated with, like, how can you be happy? Like, you see what's happening around you. But then he also realized that the ones who were surviving were tending to be the happy people. And so he wrote about it, thought about it, studied it, and wrote about it afterwards. And, wrote about how he just wrote down out of my control. Like, there's all this out there that is out of your control, but we can always control how we perceive and how we respond to things. So even in a horrific situation, we can decide what our response is.
Yeah.
So that's, doing a Go-Ruck challenge. I'm not in any way meaning to draw an equivalency to the Holocaust or concentration camp. But just anything in life, we can decide. I mean, I've had things sometimes that happen that are like minor inconveniences, and I want to be like, oh, why does this always happen to me?
Exactly.
And then I think about it, I'm like, well, you lost $20 or something like that. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, this is nothing. Like, be happy that you had $20 to lose. Instead of being unhappy that you lost it. And, that's just been, I always try to, these days, trying to put distance between the stimulus and response, because I get to choose my response, even if I don't sometimes get to choose the stimulus.
And that's helped me so much recently. It happened to me this morning, and I was thinking about this exact thing, is leaving my house, and a light at Lamar and what is that? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what it is. There's a light about 2 miles away from my house, blinking red. It took me 25 minutes to get to my house past this light. So I'm sitting there. I could walk to my house. I'm coming here to meet you, and I'm just like, I left an hour early because I'm like, it takes me 17 minutes to get there, no traffic. If traffic is terrible, it'll take me 45 minutes. I'll be there 15 minutes early, no matter what. And then this happens, and I'm just like, Peter's going to be sitting there waiting for me. I'm going to have to email him in the car, trying to figure out what to do there. And then it was just like, none of this is in my control. It's like, I did everything I could, leaving an hour early when it takes 17 minutes to get here. If I don't get there on time, it's like, I'm going to feel terrible, and it's going to affect him in a really negative way. But at the same time, it's like, as of this moment, I'm in my car. I'm in traffic. There is nothing I can do about it. And it was just like, all right, let's just ride it out and see what happens. And so I've tried to be a lot better about realizing when things are in my control and when things are out of my control, and being okay with, this is a terrible thing that's happening, or I'm seeing it as a terrible thing that's happening to me right now. But what can I do about it? I'm going to do everything I can about it. But then when I get to the point where it's like, I've put in the effort, the outcome's out of my control. And that's really, really helped me. And so I got here, and instead of being in a crazy mess, I ended up getting here 30 minutes early, of course, because it was just right there next to my house that the craziness was going on. But because I wasn't stressed and going nuts over it, I got here calm, having fun with everybody that was here already. Everything worked out fine. And even if I was late, everything would have been okay. And it would have been what it was,
Yeah. Well, so that reminds me of a couple of things. There's a saying, I'm going to butcher it, but it's basically, the coward dies 1,000 deaths, because and I'm not saying that you're a coward, but because the coward is like thinking about what could happen and being afraid of it and thinking it over and over and over again. The other thing is, I've really practiced, so I'm blessed that I have relatively low anxiety, because I've seen a few people. So my wife has a lot of anxiety, for example, and I've known other friends that have had a lot of anxiety. So as I state this, I know that I have been blessed with relatively low anxiety. But even the anxiety that I do have, I've been trying to just lean basically into it and saying, well, what's going to happen is going to happen. Let's just see how it goes. A few things, sometimes I see situations that I don't know how they're going to resolve, and I just have to wait and see for something else to happen. And instead of me running through all of these scenarios in my head in a unproductive way, I either say, okay, well, what's going to happen is going to happen. I'm just going to be a receiver and see what's going to happen. Or is there a way that I can productively prepare for whatever is happening? And if it's so let's say that it's a low probability catastrophic event, it's like, well, how can I protect myself from that? Or if it's a low probability, it's like, what if the plane crashes or something like that? It's like, okay, well, there's probably not a ton that I can do to protect myself, except maybe live my life like I should be, squeeze the juice out of every day, be a great father to my kids, a great husband to my wife, pillar of the community, something like that. And then, if I die, it's like, at least at my funeral, people will be like, hey, Peter lived a good life, and he made the world a better place. So, I don't know. I got a little weird on that one.
That's awesome. And I do feel like some people can accidentally take it the other way and leave too much up to fate. And they're like, it's out of my control. So I think it's striking that balance of doing everything you can possibly do, and then also realizing what are the aspects within that are out of your control. And a lot of times it's the outcomes of things that are out of your control. And you can just set it up the best way you can, and then it's just like, all right, we'll see what happens. But all you can control is this. You can't control these things. Can't control who's reacting to it. If that person signs up, whatever it is, if they buy that piece of equipment from you, you can just control that you're providing something good, you're trying to treat them this way, and so on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So here's what I want y'all to make at Fringe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we talked about if I was going to have build out more of my garage gym, what I want. Oh man, and there's things that are kind of like this, and they're so lame online. They're so lame. So what I want is a sandbag that's also a sled that you can pull with a rope, and you can put like sand kettlebells in it. And it doesn't have to be those things, but here's the big idea that I want is I go out to Auditorium Shores to the pull-up bars.
Yeah.
And I want to bring some things with me. And I don't just want to do pull-ups and dips and push-ups and stuff out there. And I like to have a sandbag, and I like to have these things. And then everything that I've found online that is kind of what I named is just so lame. It's so lame. Either the weights are, I guess, pandering to someone who's never worked out before, and then they demo like a sandbag clean, and it's this thing where, and they flip it around and catch it like this, and it's like, who's doing a 20-pound clean with a sandbag? Like, what is that? So that would be on my. What I want to see in the world is a pack, something that you can take to a pull-up bar in the middle of a park and pull out a strength band and pull out a couple things to like work out.
Yep.
Because I've got my like Jimmy rigged grouping of stuff, and I go out there and I bring this one thing, and then it's so funny out there. Everyone's got their earbuds in, and they've all got these mean mugs. And I immediately go up to everyone, and I'm like, introduce myself. And it's so funny. They go from being the meanest looking person in the world to all of a sudden they're just like, oh, hey. And they're so happy to talk. But I'm always out there, and I take a piece of equipment, and I'm trying to get them involved. And they're so excited to like use the thing that I brought out there. So I don't know exactly what it would be. I just want something that's easy that I can bring out there and is like the mobile gym. And the things that I need is a sled. Sandbag would be cool, but I need something I can pull, drag, pick up, and dumbbells, kettlebells. Those things are always cool. But I have scoured the internet, and I found really, really a lot of lame variations of it. So that's my request, and obviously you don't have to do anything. I think you know that, but as far as something that I know there's a gap out there for something that I personally would like to see, I haven't seen that yet.
So I love that. What it makes me think of, we haven't done this yet, but I have been wanting to do for a long time. So when you go to Southeast Asia especially, there are a number, I'm thinking Thailand especially, there are these outdoor gyms with basically jury-rigged gear. Mm-hmm. And it just lives in a park. Mm-hmm. And then it tends to have community around it. So like a lot of people go and use it, but there's no charge, it's just there. Mm-hmm. So what I've been thinking about for a number of years and just never made the leap from dream to reality, mm-hmm. is to create equipment that is designed for outdoor use that you're probably making with concrete or cement to some extent when it is at your house. And then my thought was to do like a 1-for-1 type of deal. Mm. So I'd make a barbell that would basically be just like some pipe and then some molds for cement weights around it. Mm-hmm. And whenever you were like, okay, I'm going to buy one to throw one in my backyard, well, for the price that we sell one to you for, mm-hmm. we also create another one, either here in Austin or something like that. Yeah. And then we guerrilla style mm-hmm. drop it off by pull-up bars and things like that. And I was also thinking like cement kettlebell kits and things like that. Yeah. But doing the 1-for-1 and not asking permission from any of these like municipalities or whatever. Yeah, just dropping this stuff out in parks. And my thought for it is that the gear needs to be nice enough to use, but not super nice
Where someone will
so that
steal
someone
it.
will steal it.
Yeah, because you
So-
can't chain up a kettlebell
Right.
and do kettlebell swings with this chain.
Well, because I had even thought before about trying to see if we could make like a fitness area that had like some sort of slats or fence around it, so that we could actually drop barbells and stuff in there, and people couldn't like get them out. Like people could walk in, but they
Okay.
couldn't get the weights out.
Yeah.
Because among other things, also I talked about Thailand or outdoor gyms, but I trained at Muscle Beach. Every time I'm in LA with a little bit of extra time, I go by Muscle Beach, and you can drop in there. I think for $10, drop in, and then I just go and train with the bodybuilders there, and it's just fun.
Yeah.
And you're in a cage,
Yeah.
and like tourists walking by are
Uh-huh.
like staring at you because you're next to these huge bodybuilders,
Yeah.
and that's cool. So I was thinking about how to do that. So this would not be exactly what you're talking about,
Yeah.
but if there were all of a sudden all these interesting kettlebells and
Yeah.
barbells at like 70 pounds or whatever,
Yeah.
then you could just like go there and,
Uh-huh.
and that stuff's there.
Because you kind of have that calisthenic world of you've got a pull-up bar and a dip bar, and now you do all of these things.
Mhm.
And so I go into that world about once a week just because it's near my house and I'm getting outside of the gym to go work out. And so I see those people, they're doing that only because it's there and it's
Yep.
free and it's what they know. But every time I bring something out, it's not hard to find someone that wants to play with the sandbag with me.
Yeah.
It's not hard to be like, hey, I've got a sled over here. Do you want to do like some this and this? And then we'll go pull the sled. And it is amazing how easy it is to get people to play with you. And it's just, yeah, I don't know if there's any money in it, but it's definitely an untapped area where not all of them, but most of those people, they want to play with toys too. And so for me, I have a hard time getting the things to the thing. And if it was like, oh, I bring this thing to the thing and now I've got 5 things, that like the sandbag also has like the magic carpet sled thing where you can actually pull it on the grass, and there's a rope that you can. So I just look at like, oh, what's an all-in-one way that I could have lugging one thing over? I can have 5 options that are fun to play around with just to add some variety.
I love it. I will mention also, I think that we need, just here in Austin, I think we need more pull-up bars, more public pull-up bars.
Yeah.
Particularly around the Town Lake Trail,
Mhm.
Lady Bird Lake Trail, because there only are a few pull-up bars that are relatively easily accessible. So I'd love to see more of those, and I've thought about how Fringe could be involved with that, because we could totally make outdoor pull-up bars.
Yeah.
I don't know how we would work with the city to get them installed.
Well, so here's something interesting. Over at Auditorium Shores, where those pull-up bars are that I'm talking about, there's a trailer that just got put in, and it's a bike repair trailer.
Yeah, I've seen it.
And I went and talked to the guy, and I was like, how are you here? And he was like, the Parks and Rec people are really cool. He goes, I reached out to him. I asked this. I talked to him, and he was like, I forget if he said it was a small department, but what he said is whoever's working there is very open to things that help people in Austin. And so his is a business. Like, he's sitting there with a business. So I don't know if there's a Fringe offshoot where you throw something up and you sell equipment at the same time that you give people a place to work out. But I would think that if you had any ideas, that reaching out to the Austin Parks Department was probably a good idea. They let a bike shop open up a trailer right at like the most crowded part of the hike and bike trail. And I was just sitting there going like, how did they, and they're just on a sidewalk. I was like, how did they let you go here? And he goes, well, they originally put me over here and I just asked to go here. And they're like, yeah, let's try it. So I thought that was extremely interesting. And then they have, I think you get a permit for it and they give you like where you go. But they just completely went through the Austin Parks Department and said they were extremely nice, willing to at least brainstorm with them and come up with a solution because originally they had put him somewhere, and he was like, there was no traffic over there, and so they were willing to like help me out. And so okay, so here's the spot. As I'm just telling you to do things that you never have to do. There's a spot over by the backside of Barton Springs. So it's the east side. So Barton Springs has the main entrance, and then has a back entrance on the other side of the pool.
No. There's no back entrance.
The entrance.
Yeah, no.
What is it?
Don't tell people about it. Because like when I go to Barton Springs
That's the
and
one.
it's busy, everybody is at the front entrance, like waiting to get in, and I'm like, so I don't go to the front entrance anymore. I only go to the back entrance.
Yeah, you just go around.
Because
Exactly.
there's more parking in the back entrance. Parking is usually more available.
Yeah.
The line is always shorter.
Yeah.
Sometimes non-existent. And that's just like the cooler part.
Yeah.
So it doesn't exist though.
No. So this place that doesn't exist, just use the front entrance. But the place that doesn't exist, next to the parking lot, has a giant slab, and it's where all the homeless people hang out. And so I was like, that's where a gym should be. It's like there's so many people walking around the hike and bike trails on the trail. It's like just like the bike, you throw up a trailer, you bring equipment out, you maybe have some canopies for some shade over there, but it's just this wide open concrete patch. And I was just like, I don't know what Austin Parks Department's stance on homeless people being there is, because I know they try and corral them in certain areas. So I don't know if that's an area where they're actually trying to get them or not. I don't know. But that area in my head's always been like, every time I walk by there, it's like I'm putting something right there. And then obviously I'm all in here, so I'm never going to do anything like that. And just like the sandbag thing, it's like, oh, I'm inventing this thing just for me. And it's like, I'm never going to do that. But anyway.
Anyway, indeed.
All right, Peter. I don't know how long we went for, but...
We went for a while.
All right. Well, thank you. This was a ton of fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. The one thing I would mention is I genuinely believe that stronger people live longer, happier, healthier lives. And what we do at Fringe is help people improve lives through strength, mainly by building garage gyms and by helping entrepreneurs build thriving community gyms. So what I always like to say is go out and lift something heavy today.
Awesome. And then how do people find you or Fringe Sport?
Just fringesport.com, or come by our location. If you just pop into Google Fringe Sport, if you're here in Austin, which most people listening to this will be here in Austin.
Yeah.
Just come on by Fringe Sport. As far as finding me, my email address is peter@fringesport.com. My Twitter handle is @Pete Keller, so no R on the Peter, @Pete Keller.
Awesome.
And feel free to hit me up. I can be really bad at replying, but I'm getting better at that. Also with like farming things out to Sandrine, my assistant. My assistant. But I just love people who are into strength and into interesting stuff.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. Free shipping.
Yeah.
Build up those garage gyms.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks, Peter.
Cheers.